Hello, class. Well, it's a new week ahead of us today. We finished our week on case study and mixed methods research, and now we're learning about, well, March 28th, we're learning about action research this week. And so I want to talk about this concept of action research just a little bit to explain what it's all about. Action research is actually one of my favorite, I guess, research methods. And I don't know why they put it in the end. I guess they should put it at the beginning then, right? But action research is really about how you do research in your own classroom. It's really an educational concept, but it can work in different areas as well. So I'll just point out an educational example. There's a teacher who notices that her students are not doing so well on reading comprehension in her class. Maybe it's a 5th grade teacher in the elementary school. And this teacher says, okay, well, I'm going to do some collection of data to verify that this is a problem. So she collects data, determines that her students are not doing so well in reading comprehension. They're below the national average or whatever average they're striving for. And then this teacher implements a new and interesting solution to that. Maybe does a little bit of research, looks online, what are some people doing for reading comprehension in their classrooms and what seems to be working. Okay, I'm going to try that. And they'll create a new method to implement in their classroom. Then they implement it, and then they collect their own data as well to determine whether the solution is working over time. After the implementation has been implemented and the data is gathered, maybe it didn't work as well as the teacher thought. Maybe it improved things just a little bit, but it needs more. So the teacher adjusts her approach to reading comprehension in the class and then takes more data. And then pretty soon, hopefully, as the adjustments continue and as the data is continued to be collected, hopefully students' reading comprehension is going up and improving. So that's the idea with action research. It's done within a specific situation, a specific classroom by a specific teacher usually. And it's done for the purpose of just that classroom. It's not really done to be writing in these flowery journal articles that academics like to write in. Nor is it done for the teacher's ego. It's really just done for the practical reason of improving things at a local level in the classroom. So that's what action research really is all about, is just allowing the teacher or someone in a situation to improve their practice. And by collecting data and trying new implementations and seeing what the data says with these new implementations, a teacher can do this type of research and improve things, or a person can do this type of research and improve things in their own situation, wherever they are. A lot of you are counseling students. This can also work in your counseling programs, although there doesn't tend to be data collected as much on counseling. But maybe there is some kind of data you can collect as a counselor and try a different approach and see if that seems to be working. Adjust the approach as needed. Check the data, see if it's working, and moving forward in that way. So I could see it working in that way as well. From table 16.1 in the book, there is a components of critical perspective of action research. Oh, actually that's the wrong place. I wasn't planning on going there. But key characteristics of action research. It's persuasive and authoritative, meaning that it is actually something that somebody might be interested in. Like another teacher might really be interested in this because it was done by a teacher. It's done by someone who's actually where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, or someone in a similar situation. Action research is relevant. It's not really published in journals. Well, it can be published in journals for sure, but it's not really made to do it that way. It's supposed to be relevant to someone else who practices similarly to the researcher. It's accessible as well. This is accessible research. It's not flowery language and the most highfalutin kind of academic ideas that go in action research. It's more about practicality, right? It's accessible to anyone who wants to learn about it, should be anyway. And it challenges the intractability of reform of the educational system. So you can see that there's a lot of improvement that can be made through collecting data and trying to interpret or implement new action research. And as it says in the book, it's not a fad either. It's not something that just one of these educational ideas that just comes and then in a few years it'll be gone again. because it's so practical and so useful right there in the classroom. So that's a little primer on action research, but you're going to read about action research and review the slides, and then also take a quiz on action research this week. And then, of course, the design participants and procedures assignment is also due by the end of this week. So in order to do this assignment, you have to identify your research proposal as either qualitative or quantitative, and then determine which type of quantitative or qualitative study your proposal represents. So if you're going to choose quantitative type of research, you're going to want to choose one of these 5 items, such as survey, correlational, causal, comparative, experimental, or single subject experimental research. So it's got to be one of these. It has to fit within one of these molds for this class. This is your first chance to write a research proposal for most of you. So make sure I'm requiring you to be stuck in these molds. And then for qualitative research, if you're going to choose one of those, you have to choose, if you're going to choose qualitative research, you have to choose narrative, ethnographic, or case study research as the type of research that you're going to implement. And then whatever one you choose, you must follow the assumptions and the requirements of that type of research. So my suggestion is to go back to the chapter on whichever type of research you're choosing, whether it's survey or ethnographic or whatever it might be. Go back to that chapter. Make sure you understand what that research study is, the type of research is about, and then you're going to complete task 6 from the textbook for quantitative research proposals, or task 7 from the textbook for qualitative proposals. So you actually have to state these types of things. The basic elements for quantitative research should be the type, participants, instruments, and you have to discuss each of these in depth, like who are your participants and why? What are your instruments? What exactly is your instrument for your quantitative study? What is the design? Include a figure or diagram of the research design. And what procedure are you going to follow for your research? What's step 1? What's step 2? Each of these should go into quite a bit of depth on what you propose to do for your research study. If it's qualitative research proposal, you're going to include the type of qualitative research, obviously. And this says grounded theory. I need to change that. We didn't read about grounded theory. But action research might be considered somewhat similar to grounded theory, but that wouldn't fit under necessarily qualitative research or quantitative. Action research is sort of its own type of research. So type of research, case study, ethnography, or narrative. Who are your participants? And give me a specific group. Don't just say it's this group of Native Americans on this reservation. No, I need more specifics than that. What part of that group? You can't do the entire reservation. It's just not possible with qualitative research. You would collect way too much stuff. You'd be there for years and years. What participants how are you going to choose those participants? You probably don't know their names at this point in time, but who is it going to be? Is it going to be 10 people, and how are you going to choose those 10 people for a case study research, for instance? Or ethnography, I guess you can go a little bit bigger with your group, right? You have an ethnographic group, and you're going to spend time with whoever's in this certain location. And narrative, usually that's just one person, or just a few. And then what are you going to do for your data collection? What data will you collect? Is it going to be observations? Are you going to be there every day, Monday through Friday, for 5 weeks? Are you going to be there? How are you going to collect data? Is it going to be interviews? What data collection will you follow? And what's the procedure? Talk about what your procedure will be in collecting this data and doing this research. So then take a look at the rubrics. It has a separate rubric for this assignment for quantitative research proposals, and then there's another rubric for qualitative research proposals. For quantitative ones, of course, I'm going to put a lot of weight on, how you select your sample from the population, the size and important characteristics related to the study, and the instruments, right? The instrument is a big deal in quantitative research. What is your instrument? Does it provide sufficient detail to understand the purpose of the instrument and includes all available validity and reliability information? And this one, you'll have to look around. You'll have to see if there's an instrument out there already that has good validity and reliability information. in order to implement that. I look for a clear figure or diagram for the design of the study and why this design was included. I look for the overall timeline of events as they should happen, as you planned for them to happen in the research study, and the procedure description and so forth. This is sort of your final, this isn't your final, but it's getting toward your final research proposal, really. And hopefully you've been able to have time to think about it enough for now. And then for qualitative research studies, the emphasis, of course, is not going to be on an instrument because you're just collecting data. As a qualitative study, you don't really have a set instrument necessarily. But I look more heavily on participants, like how are you going to select them? Is it because they have experienced this traumatic experience that you are studying? Is it because, and who will you select out of the group? How is it a certain population within a certain group? How many of them will there be? But look under your chapter again. Check your chapter for case study research. If it's case study that you're going to do, make sure you follow all the assumptions of that study. Also, data collection methods. So again, I want to see how you're going to collect data, what you're going to do with all that data, that kind of a thing. How, there's a lot of data with qualitative research. There's tons. And so you're going to have to narrow it down to the types of data that you want to collect. You could collect everything if you wanted to, but that's not going to work. And then, let's see, what else? The design description. Why did you choose this design? What threats to validity are associated with the design? And then the procedure description includes a clear overall timeline of events as they should happen in the research study. So when are you going to do those focus group interviews? When are you going to do those observations? How will they sequence together in your research study? So that's what we're looking for in the next assignment. This is kind of getting to your final proposal. The next step is really to work on the literature review. The final literature review will be due next week. And then I think there's a final proposal where you put it all together a couple weeks after that, based on my statements and my responses to what you've submitted this week. And so you'll have a literature review next week, and then 2 weeks after that a final proposal, and then we'll have some other activities happening after that to prepare you to evaluate research. So I wish you luck this week and have a great week.